student enrollment, budget status, Act 46 formal study committee minutes, and withdrew a paraprofessional and moved some positions. And that's just for your information. With the amended items that were discussed, I would like a motion to accept amended.
Second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nays, ayes have it. Okay, with that, we're open to public comment. Is there anybody here to make a public comment? Come on up to the mic, Fran.
Hi, Frank Kinney, Shaftesbury. Tomorrow night, we'll be voting in the cafeteria, a carousel meeting on Act 46, whether to bring it to a vote. I'm for one, am against that. I think it devastates Shaftesbury. Obviously, I mean, there's a lot of common sense there. What they should have done is combine the elementary schools instead of having one super board. But I see a lot of things that go against the town, especially Shaftesbury. I can imagine how many unfunded mandates will come down and be shoved in everybody's face, whether it's North Bennington, Shaftesbury, Pownell. I think that they'll have the right to close any school they want. They'll have the right to put all their sixth graders up here, and you're not going to have a vote. You're not going to have a say in it anyway. And I find it amazing we're trying to run this through just like the health care plan that they're doing in Washington. And we shouldn't be trying to do this, but I hope everybody votes this sucker down, because there's too many hidden things. I've heard that Shaftesbury is an inefficient school. Well, it definitely is not. It's probably the best school in the area as far as watching the pennies. And I've heard, well, we want the facts. Well, you don't have the facts. You don't even know what the hell the facts are. I mean, especially if you get into the unfunded mandates, and you know it's going to come. And then we're going to see open teacher negotiations go bye-bye, because you have some board members sitting here, they don't want it. And that's okay. But I'm going to tell you something. You're going to go right back to the way it was, and that's not a good thing, because all the contracts, I've been in there since '88, well, the board's negotiating in bad faith. Well, we all know what happened to that when we went open. You didn't hear it again for at least the last 3 contracts. And they've been relatively pretty good. So I just caution everybody. I'm hoping people are smart enough to vote this thing down, because I don't think anybody knows just what they're doing or what they think is going to happen, because they don't know. And I'm hoping there's enough people on this board, or all the boards, and into town, you're going to go out to the people in the community, well, you need to vote for this. How are you going to tell them to vote for it when they don't even know what the hell it is? So anyway, I just caution everybody, and a lot of people are blaming Jim Culkeen for this. Well, it has nothing to do with Jim Culkeen. It has the state. I say let the state come down and do what they're going to do. Let the state be responsible. Let them be accountable, because they never are. Because when they say, and I've heard legislators, even our own legislator in Shaftesbury, well, the state says you have to have this, so we have it. They say it's law. Okay. And then they say, well, you guys voted for it. No, let the state be responsible and accountable. Let them come down and do it. We'll probably keep what we have when they see that it's just as good as what we have now. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other public comments? Okay, moving on. Finance operations related. Treasurer's report.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on it? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Donation from New England Grassroots Environmental Fund.
This was tabled last month because we didn't have all the
So moved.
information, and Renee does have it.
So it's gonna,
I'll second it,
yeah.
and then you're going to have a discussion.
I'm sorry that I wasn't able to be here last month.
You didn't ask for discussion.
This donation is for, Kurt Austin has actually sought a number of donations from a number of organizations for a project that he has. He is a special educator at the high school in the Ideals program, and what this project is a wheelchair accessible garden for his students with raised beds. So back in April, you may remember that there was a $250 donation from Stewart's for the same project. So that's what this is for,
Okay.
This is
Thank
just
you.
for the garden?
just for the garden.
Okay.
What's all this
Okay.
other stuff on the paper? What's all the other stuff on the paper?
It's
Root
prom-
skills
it's-
trainings, promote your events?
It's promotional, yeah. So that is part of the, like with Kurt accepting or applying for this and the board accepting, they have asked that he promote or share with other organizations. So he's got to partake in a conference call with other people who have been awarded this grant so they can share and just expose this organization for the money that they have to offer for your environmental cause.
Okay, any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Got one opposed. Any abstentions? None. Okay. Okay, moving on to procedures for executing contracts.
Will also be, Renee, this is an item that needs to be addressed from our auditors.
Okay.
So back in May, we had a visit from the Agency of Education for a fiscal monitoring visit. Through that, they looked at a number of things and provided us with a report. In that report, they identified a few areas where we needed additional documentation. And one of them is statute 16 VSA 563 subsection 16 that allows the board to enter into contracts, and that can be executed by the board chair or a designee that has been recorded in the minutes of the board. So that's specific to statute, and because I could not produce those minutes, they said you need to bring this to the board, hopefully have them take action to allow somebody other than the board chair, because, well, Nelson, you are welcome to come in, but you would be in my office a lot. Reason being, they consider purchase orders to be a form of a contract, and there's a lot of them going out which have my name on them, but because the board has not taken this action, we don't have it recorded in the minutes. That is why I'm here tonight, asking the board to authorize the office of the
This is the motion from
superintendent or his designee that authority.
Okay.
I'll move we,
Make the motion.
oh, you got it, okay.
Yeah, I'll let you read it off, and then someone can second.
All right. Motion to authorize the office of the superintendent or designee to execute contracts on behalf of the Southwest Vermont Supervisory Union.
Second?
Second it.
Any discussion on it? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Nays? Ayes have it. Oops. Okay, and I went from the page. Back. What's the next thing? Okay, consent agenda.
So moved?
Second.
Any discussion on any items in the consent agenda?
I think we're considering two sets of minutes here, one for August 15th and one for August 23rd. I can't vote on both of those as I was absent from one.
So you'll abstain? Or we can pull one, and
Pull one.
how many other people were absent from?
I was absent from the
I was absent from one,
carousel.
too.
Is that the 23rd one?
Well, let's,
There was,
Special
Minutes from the
meeting, right?
consent agenda
Well-
and vote on the
Well,
substitute.
the minutes.
yeah, we're gonna pull the minutes and we'll vote them separate, okay?
Okay.
With that, I've got an amendment to pull the minutes. In a second,
yeah.
a motion, got a second down there? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment to pull the minutes from the consent agenda?
So,
Make sure we do it right, guys. Okay, all those in favor of the amended consent agenda, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Nays? Okay, minutes. There was two sets of minutes. One was for the carousel meeting. Get a motion to accept those.
Second it.
Okay, any discussion on those? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those that abstain,
Aye.
2 abstentions. Any nays? They'll get three that abstain. Mark.
Mike.
Approval of the regular minutes?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion on those? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Nays? Okay. Consent agenda. No policies this time?
Yeah, no.
Superintendent report.
The Vermont Agency of Education is going to be coming down here to our district to conduct what is known as an integrated field review. I've asked Assistant Superintendent Donna Leap to give you a brief presentation on that this evening, since she is spearheading this for the Agency of Education, for the supervisory union.
Floor is yours.
We're coming. Okay.
Takes time to warm up.
Is it coming up?
Yes.
There it is, okay. And thank you for letting me do this evening. This is just an update on this process. It's new to everyone. It is called the Integrated Field Review. This is a new way that the state of Vermont is going to come to every school in the state to look at how we are implementing the educational quality standards. It's not an evaluation, it's just like to look at our strengths and challenges. We will be sending a team to other schools, and a team from other schools will be coming to us. So in a way, it's very much like the NEAS process of accreditation for the high school. It's kind of interesting. It's brand new. So we'll see how the whole thing goes. We are sending a team to a training in Killington on Monday and Tuesday. And it is a representative team with administrators, principals, directors, special education, teachers, special service providers, as representative as we can to be trained so that we will be going to another school in trade for a school coming to visit us. So I have a little slideshow here. It's 5 minutes, and it's Josh Solier or Jesse Roy, I can't tell their voices apart, are telling all of you all about
The Vermont Agency of Education presents this module, an introduction to integrated field reviews. Intended outcomes for this module are an understanding of the background and basic design of the integrated field reviews, as well as familiarity with the goals of the process. Additional modules provide more in-depth descriptions of visiting and host team member responsibilities and the collection of evidence statements. In Vermont, school system level data is collected by the Agency of Education through education quality reviews. Education quality reviews are made up of 2 independent components: the annual snapshot and the integrated field review. The first component, the annual snapshot, is the yearly collection of quantitative data about a school system. This data includes demographic data, information about student performance on standardized assessments, and other indicators of educational outcomes, such as graduation rates and college and career readiness. The data collected through the annual snapshot is described in Vermont's state plan under the federal Every Student Succeeds Act, and appears on each supervisory union or school district's annual report card. The second component of the education quality reviews is the integrated field review. In contrast to the annual snapshot, the integrated field review is qualitative, collaborative, and largely LEA directed. It is not evaluative, and it's not required by federal law. Each supervisory union or school district will engage in the IFR process every 3 years, in cohorts of 4 to 7 neighboring LEAs. While this process has clear goals, which we'll touch on in a couple of slides, LEAs can choose how to use the information gathered during their field review. The integrated field review is conducted by a team of educators from neighboring school systems in collaboration with AOE staff members. This group is charged with recording factual evidence statements of whether certain artifacts, seen through observations, and shared in interviews during a day-long in-person visit with the host LEA. The selection of artifacts and the schedules of observations and interviews are chosen entirely by the host school system. The hundreds of evidence statements collected during the integrated field review are distilled down into a collection of draft findings that represent school system level trends and themes in the evidence. This is done by the visiting team following the integrated field review, both in person and through online collaboration. Finally, the full visiting team meets virtually to finalize findings and to write commendations and recommendations representing those findings about the host LEA that they deem to be the most important. It's important to reinforce that the integrated field review yields school system level information and does not identify individual schools or staff. The evidence collected during the review and the school system level findings, commendations, and recommendations included in the final report reflect the components of Vermont's education quality standards. In the IFR process, the standards are grouped into 5 domains of academic proficiency, personalization, safe, healthy schools, high-quality staffing, and investment priorities. Findings, 2 recommendations, and 2 commendations are written for each of these 5 domains when the final report is created for a host LEA. While use of the final report is at the discretion of the host school system, the integrated field review process was designed around these 5 goals. To understand continuous improvement efforts and local decisions regarding education quality standards implementation. To recognize the full range of outcomes we expect schools to deliver. To identify promising practices to lift up to share with other school systems. To create networking opportunities among geographically proximate school systems. And to build a collective responsibility for all students in Vermont. In the past, school systems have used the results to guide continuous improvement planning, to jumpstart internal conversations about their practices, to enhance communication with external stakeholders, to steer professional development, and to facilitate the sharing of resources with colleagues across the state. To recap, integrated field reviews are the qualitative, collaborative, and non-evaluative component of Vermont's education quality reviews. Every Vermont supervisory union or school district will engage in this process every 3 years. Broadly, the process consists of a visiting team comprised of neighboring educators collecting evidence statements about practices occurring in the host school system. This occurs during artifact reviews and a day of in-person observations and interviews, all designed by the host team. The evidence collected yields school system level findings, commendations, and recommendations underpinned by the expectations of Vermont's education quality standards, with evidence collected and findings determined through the lens of this document. While school systems can choose how to apply their findings, the integrated field review process was designed to support continuous improvement planning, create networking opportunities, bring to light promising practices, and develop a statewide climate of shared responsibility for the success of all Vermont students. The series of short videos, linked on this slide, further describe the education quality review and integrated field review processes in Vermont through the voices of participants from the first year of integrated field review pilots. For more information about Vermont's integrated field review process, including additional training modules and resources, please visit the Vermont Agency of Education's Education Quality Assurance Team page. Thanks, and have a great year.
So that's the summary. We certainly will bring back the results when we leave here from the team that does this process with us. Our review date is November 7th. So they will be coming here to visit with us on November 7th and collect all of their evidence. We don't have a date yet. Any questions? I think it was just to give you kind of a heads up that that will be happening, and it's a new process and interesting. I would say that the past few years we have been really focusing on the education quality standards as our sort of our framework for all of the work we do here in the SVSU. So I think we have a lot to share with them, and they have already said that in some ways we're sort of teaching them what to do. So it will be a nice opportunity to share some of the great work that's been done in this. I think it's very positive. It's very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice. Another thing I want to talk about is Act 46 from the superintendent's perspective. Thank you, Fran. I didn't know that I was responsible or being blamed for a state law, but
That's out there.
Some of these things you may already know, but it's worth repeating in a public forum. Last Wednesday, Don Campbell, who's the Act 46 study committee chair, our consultant Dan French, and I traveled to Montpelier to the State Board of Education meeting where the Articles of Agreement and the SVSU plan for merger were approved by the State Board. So that was really what we consider step one of this process. The next step is tomorrow night. There will be a carousel meeting here at the middle school in the cafeteria at 6 o'clock of the Woodford Board, the Bennington School Board, Parnell and Shaftesbury and North Bennington. The purpose of that meeting is to warn the vote, and the ballot, there's two different ballots, one for the election of directors and one for the merger. So the step is that the individual boards that are affected by this have to vote to want it, which then will bring it to public vote on, again, November 7th. It's going to be a busy day. I do hope that all the boards do take that step so that we move the democratic process forward and give everyone the opportunity to vote for it. And once that happens tomorrow night, I hope that then lively discussion, debate will take place. The Act 46 Study Committee is planning a series of meetings that will attempt to bring forth information that then people are free to make their own decisions on how they feel about this consolidation. What the state will do or won't do if this vote goes through, I'm not my role to speculate here tonight. I know what they do say, that I know if the vote does not go through in November, then each individual school board will have to produce a document saying how they meet the tenets of Act 46 as we are currently configured, and then we sit back and wait and see what the state will do. On that vote November 7th, if the majority of the school districts vote and approve it, then it will go forward for those communities that approve it, not for those that don't. So, probably all I want to say on Act 46. Last week also, one day I went to Montpelier, the next day I went to Barrie, so it's a beautiful time to travel the state of Vermont with the foliage. The meeting in Barrie was the fall meeting of the Vermont Superintendents Association, and it's always a productive meeting, good use of sharing of information among superintendents. But the Secretary of Education, Rebecca Holcomb, was one of the featured speakers, as she often is. And her message was a little sobering, particularly around budgets. Her term, the FY19 budget is structurally deficient to the tune of $47 million. Money was taken from the rainy day fund to balance this year's budget. That plus the payment that they would have to make to that rainy day fund to replenish it.
When you say budget, you're talking about the ed fund?
Ed fund, I'm talking about the ed fund, yes. Thank you for clarifying. And so that's, And it doesn't seem at this time that there is necessarily going to be a way to replenish that fund because there isn't not enough money left in that rainy day fund to replenish. This year's budget that we're in right now, FY18, is being balanced by that rainy day fund payment. And there isn't enough money left in that fund to do the same thing in FY19. And I'm sure you've heard the calls from the governor that we should be level funding spending, which in reality works as a spending cut because our costs are increasing. So we have some challenges ahead, and I mentioned this as we enter into budget season real shortly, that this is something that we're going to have to look at where we could possibly trim spending and still move forward with our mission. So that's informational for you. I mean, many of us have been around a while through budget seasons before. It always begins with a little doom or gloom, and we're always hearing cautions, and maybe there's some last-minute rescue that may help. What the Secretary cautioned is the legislature might not really look at that as an option because Vermont enjoys, or has the curse, depending on how you see, of one of the lowest student-teacher ratios in New England, if not even the country. And that low student-teacher ratio comes with a cost. And we may be forced to look at that as we get into difficult budget discussions and decisions. So as far as a rescue from the legislature to additional funds to education, the Secretary of Education at this time does not see that happening. Full of good news, right? The state released our SBAC test results, which everybody was waiting for to see. They were embargoed, which means we could not release them publicly to the state. Then the state released them. They were out there for a little while, then they pulled them back because of some flaw in how they, the information that they had released it. I really don't have the explanation for that. So they brought them back, couldn't see them, couldn't release them. Then earlier this week they were released again. Currently our principals and our curriculum, instruction, and assessment staff, Donna Lee, Melissa Senecal, Laura Boudreau, and I'm sure I'm forgetting a few others. Pat Conway, yeah. And our tech department are unpacking all those results so that we can then, along with our principals, then present them at the October meetings to all the individual boards as we, and I got a preview today of those results, and they're mixed. We're certainly not pleased with everything that we're seeing, but I believe we have a solid plan put together for how we're going to address that. And you'll be hearing that about it at your individual board meetings. So, as you know, our teachers' contract is signed, but our support staff contract is not. It hasn't been ratified. And Leon, who was chair of that committee, persuaded me to push a little bit more with, because what we were hearing is the contract is in limbo with the Vermont NEA representative, Norm Bartlett. So we made a phone call to Norm, bypassing our regular channels of how we usually communicate. In other words, I called his cell phone personally rather than send emails to our attorneys back and forth, because this has just gone on too long. And he promised that he would finish reviewing it, that he's almost done, and he would get it back to our attorney, who then will probably review it again and then let us know that both sides are fully in agreement on some wording, and we'll be able to have the support staff have their ratification vote. So then we can bring it back to all the boards, whether that is also a carousel meeting, and get that approved by the boards. So what's happened is any support staff have not had any adjustment in salary, and we will have to do retroactive pay to all of those support staff members. So, and I believe our human resource staff is up to that task. Certainly, they would have preferred to avoid it, but this is, as Leon pointed out, gone on way too long, and we had both sides pointing fingers over who was doing. Support staff was done in negotiations, the board was done in negotiations. This has been a language kind of back between our attorney, Dean Atwood, and NEA rep Norm Bartlett, and with both sides saying it was who was delaying it. So, update on that. One last item that I need. I was reviewing some minutes and I couldn't find who has been designated as the SVSU reps to negotiate with the principals. We're in the last year of the principal contract, so we're going to need 2 individuals or whatever, Nelson, you feel you want to add to that. We need to meet with them sooner rather than later, because even though their contract expires at the end of this year, their health insurance changes before their contract expires. So we might have to do an amendment to their current contract to get them into compliance with what plans will be offered on January 1st. So I went back and quickly looked at minutes to see if we had appointed reps, but I didn't see any. That would be it.
Okay. Go ahead.
For the SVAC, I know I got the question before. Do you know when the test results will come home to the family?
I'm sorry, can you get
The
posted?
test results will be sent home to the family?
I don't know that. Can you address that? Because I know it's still with the principals right now.
Yes, we had given the principals a window when they should send out the results, and then they pulled them back from us. So the window just reopened yesterday. So now the schools and principals and secretaries will have a week.
We just sent them printout instructions.
Yes,
to
we
the
sent them
principals.
printout instructions, but we give everyone a week and say to send them out during this window, because different schools have different levels of, how many that involves. So they should be getting mailed out very soon.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, taking a quick look at my email I sent back on April of 2017, appointments. Personnel was Dick Franz and Cindy Brownell.
Personnel.
Yeah, which would be,
So
I
do
assume,
that. Okay.
I would say they're the ones to do that.
And Dick Branson, Cindy
Cindy.
Burnell used to want to do that.
What is this for?
Negotiations with the principals. They have a separate contract.
We get along once in a while.
Thank you.
Okay. I know they didn't say no when they got appointed, so. Okay.
I just saw a look down there, so I just figured
I know, I'll probably be taken up later at home, but that's okay. Okay, my report. Okay, I did put down some notes. I also wanted to say a little something about the Act 46. I really request the people out there to gather as much information they can and try to learn about this, because it really has a lot of impact on our community as a whole. And try to realize that what we're really trying to do is improve education for our children, not worry about dollars. That's really what the goal of this whole process is about. And I'm not, by saying it, I'm not saying I'm agreeing with what's out in front of us, and I'm not saying that it should be major changes. I do want to state, though, that when this MAU board and the various boards that we have today was created, it was not created in a very short time. And I know there was a lot of pressure underneath this last committee that was formed to try to get something out there because of the deadlines of the incentives. And I think we have to understand that we're dealing with a total of 6 boards, if I have that right, in this process, counting this board as well. And basically, each one of those boards have certain authority today over what they do in their district and how they vote, even under the MAU board, they actually have a kill vote for some things when it goes out to vote under the MAU board. Once you create Fran said, a super board, you have to realize that those communities no longer stand alone independently and have the same power that they have today in what occurs and doesn't occur. There's no way that 2 votes on a 11-person board is going to kill whatever occurs, because it'll be a majority vote of that board that does that. And there was some other things in the rules and regulations of the MAU board that are unique, because that's how we got the communities to vote to have an MAU board and to have a high school and a combined education. And it's hard to go back and have people review the past that's that far back, but to say this is like the MAU board, I stress it is not like the MAU board. It is a super board that will control your educational process, and you need to understand that and make a decision based on that. It's not a mirror image of what we have today, in any sense of the word. I've heard comments about moving students around. I know we have a 4-year clause, but what I just heard here a minute ago concerns me with the fact that I think budgeting process, we're going to have to be creative. And we have to sort of look at how we can better manage our staff and our students in a way that really works on the budget, because our largest part of the budget is the cost of the staff, whether it's administrative or teachers. And nobody wants to see a school have to lay off a bunch of teachers and end up with not having enough to teach whatever class they need to teach. So I think we're headed down a path that we really have to be careful. We have to think of what we're doing and where we're going. And I keep hearing that if we don't do this, we'll be merged like this. That's not true. We learned at one of the meetings. If we don't do this, you could be merged into an elementary level and an leave the MAU alone and leave the way it is. So we need to think about that when you go to vote yes or no, what you really want and how you want to see this system come out. But be aware that it costs us, was it $46 million to run this? And if we're going to have to find ways to cut budgets, it's going to be tough unless we really put some time into learning what's in front of us and deciding how we're going to manage it. And that's my Act 46 speech. And again, there's a carousel meeting
Tomorrow. 6
tomorrow
o'clock.
in which all the boards will come and make their decision whether to warn it or not. I'm very strong in hoping that this committee can get out there and spread the word on what they're doing and how it is so people understand it. And I hope that the carousel group will understand that they're part of that process. Okay. And I guess that's where I'll end it as the chair report versus getting into others. There's one more thing I have to do. We had to cancel out a meeting with the superintendent to set some goals and doing that. I need to try to make that happen sooner than later. So you all, the people that are on that committee will be hearing from me. And we'll try and
Maybe we could all meet after this and select a date.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. And I'm trying to figure out what I did with my committee things. I probably put it away. But we'll take and do that, because I think that's also important because of the weight of what's happening with the Pressure Act 46 and other things. So we'll be doing that also. That, I'll end my report. Other business before the board.
You have down the SVSU Board appointee representative.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have it on my screen. Let me pull it down.
Oh, yeah. EA meeting.
Oh, yes, under other, SVSU Board to appoint a representative to vote for the Vermont School Board Associating meeting. Who's going to attend that? Is there any member here that's going to go to that? Okay, we've got a couple members that are going. would the board,
Dave, do the vote.
is that, you're making a motion to
Yeah,
Dave?
you can-
You're making a mo-
You can do it.
I'm happy to have you do it too, then. So,
Can we get a motion to
Dave,
appoint?
I make a motion that we nominate Dave to represent us at the VSBA conference in October.
And I got a second. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Dave. Okay,
I have another.
you have another? Go ahead.
Yeah. On the policies, we were supposed to meet on the second Tuesday, but we're meeting, because that's a holiday, we're meeting 10/2/17. So that agenda will be going out for everybody.
Okay.
So we have a meeting on 10/2/17,
Okay, policy.
so the 8th.
Okay, any others?
just a question. I noticed the last couple of meetings in the FYI section, and this may be a question that the superintendent has an answer to, if you don't, Nelson, but tonight there is, under FYI item D, withdrew, and then there's a name of an individual and a position. And we've, as I said, we've seen this in the last couple of meetings, and I had never seen it, anything like it before, so just wondering what it is, what it means, and why it's there.
I don't, if you look at the agenda, it was Mike Jeanette.
On the consent agenda?
No, it's on the FYI. It's down here where it says it. I don't know why it's on, he's asking why is it into the FYI versus,
Or what does it mean, yeah, what does it mean withdrew from what?
They didn't accept the position. They were in the process of being hired.
Okay.
You got their nomination form at a previous meeting, but before the position.
So it's somebody who we had in a
Probably.
previous meeting approved?
Right.
Okay.
Didn't
Likely
he's
took a
withdrawn.
job somewhere else. so
Didn't
they-
he withdraw for our meeting last time?
he withdrew between the time that we nominated him
Yes.
and now. So he's informing you that the person said no.
Thank you.
And we talked earlier about the change in the person. We did that at the last meeting too, talked about him changing. Anything else?
Motion adjourned.
Second.
Got a motion to adjourn and a second. Did anybody have anything to say before we adjourn? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.